Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here today. I just want to give a brief update of the wildfire situation in the province at the moment, and also give you a bit of a forecast that we have for the remaining part of the summer. Currently, we're have quite a few fires going on right now. The hot, dry, humid, and high winds conditions are causing a lot of fires to spread at rapid pace. All these fires are in mostly grassed areas, and that starts the fuel and the rate of spread is extremely fast when it comes to the grassland. We're waiting for the forest to green up, and that should usually reduce the speed, but it also changes the type of fuel type, and then you get into the bigger trees for the summer months. Currently, we're battling, this year we've had 62 wildfires. Most of those wildfires are extinguished or being held, and about 13 that we would still deem to be being held or out of control. I must note that all of those wildfires are human caused at this point. People, when they need to be respectful of the conditions, they need to be respectful of the permit conditions, and to ensure that they don't allow fires to escape. Our crews are currently all actively working. They're on fires or waiting for additional fires. We do have some staff that are just coming back because of the school season, and they're training and they're in currently training courses. Our water bomber fleet is all up and ready to go, and they are actively on fires even as we speak at this exact moment. We've implemented travel bans into Eastern Manitoba and the Interlake and part in Spruce Woods. These travel bans are for motorized traffic, and so we ask that people not to go into the backcountry with motorized vehicles at this time, and as well as there is a restriction on the use of campfires in approved pits from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Conservation officers are working very hard and helping us out with the enforcement of that, so if people who don't obey with these restrictions, they may face prosecution. And yeah.
Are you aware of a fire near Lynn Lake?
Yeah, I am. So there's a fire near the mine by Lynn Lake. We got the report late last night. Most up-to-date information we have staff going there as we speak. However, the information we're getting from the mine company is right now it's being contained within the heavy equipment line that they have established. But we still don't have our eyes on it. They're currently going there just because of the remoteness of the community. We have people going there as we speak, but as of right now, we don't see any issues with it.
There was some word that they were maybe trying to open up a lake that's still frozen for the water bombers. Can you confirm any of that?
No, that wouldn't be the case, no. But that area will be difficult to fight fires because we do have, most of the lakes are ice covered right now. So it would be very unlikely that the water bombers will be able to pick up water in a near proximity to that area.
Can you tell us a little bit about the, man-caused fires? I mean, can you expand on that a little bit? Like, how do investigators find that these fires typically start when they are caused by human activity? And have any charges, fines, anything like that, warnings been handed out yet in response to the fires that have already happened?
Yeah, as far as charges and fines, most of the investigations are still ongoing and pending. It does take time to collect evidence, talk to witnesses and things like that. But based on the investigation, a fire investigator will go on the site to look at origin and cause. The other thing too is there really no natural start of fires at this time. It's typically lightning. We have had very little lightning in this area, so we do know without a doubt that most of these fires are human caused. I want to emphasize it doesn't mean it's arson or things like that. It could be through machinery, mechanical, motorized vehicles, accidental. There's a lot of different, when we use the word human caused, it's very broad and it's not necessarily arson, but arson can be a play for sure.
Which areas of the province are seeing the most concerning conditions right now?
Yeah, so the eastern part of Manitoba right now would be our biggest area of concern, and then into the Interlake. It's the area that has thawed out fast there first, and that's where we have most of the grassland that we're waiting for some moisture to green up. Also, that part of the province had the least amount of snow throughout compared to the rest. The western part of the province, they did do quite well with snow cover this year, and the north upon saying that they have been in drought conditions for the last few years, so they haven't fully replenished where we would hope them to be. But Eastern Manitoba and the Interlake is most definitely the biggest area of concern of the areas that we take care of.
So looking ahead to the summer, are those your biggest concern areas? Because Natural Resources Canada is really predicting a spike in Western Manitoba sort of later in the summer.
Yeah, we agree with Natural Resources Canada's assessment. It would be more for the whole province that we would have above average fire activity. Again, that can be, we plan no matter what we're going to expect. We plan the same way, and it doesn't take much for a little bit of moisture and rain to curb those concerns. So it's very fluid, and to give a true assessment of what's going to happen throughout the year, I really can't, but Natural Resources Canada's assessment is exactly what we think too.
As far as resources being out and enforcement, if people know or see people that are using backcountry relationship, who do they report to? What should be done to be concerned with seeing this?
Yeah, the public could call our tip line, and they'll get directly to fire staff and the conservation officers, and the number is 1-800-782-0076.
Do you have any information on the fire at Lake Manitoba First Nation?
No, I don't have information on that this time.
I was wondering, are you concerned potentially about a lack of support from American neighbors this year? I know that might be a bit more question for the CIFC, but is that worrying you at all this time?
No, I don't. We have 2 compacts through CIFC and GLIFC. So the Great Lakes Forest Fire Complex would be the one that we have an agreement with Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and of course Ontario as well. And no, we have full agreements, and there's no changes to that.
I know it's early in the season, but do you anticipate you'll need to call in those resources from other provinces and countries?
Well, they're fighting the same battle as we are, so it's hard to say. I'm sure there'll be times when we'll need to call for their help for sure.
And sort of just one broader question. You mentioned that teams are working on the ground, all the water bombers are deployed, people are being trained up. Could you give us sort of a vague number of how many people and what the equipment personnel sort of looks like in the force at this time, numbers-wise?
In the force at a time, so we have 300 what I would call frontline fire personnel that works for Manitoba Wildfire Service. And at every fire incident, it all depends. Sometimes you have one crew of 4 or 5 people, and sometimes you have a crew of like 10 crews of 4 or 5 people. So it all depends on the size of the fire and what fuel's ahead of it before we put too many people on it, or yeah.
And in terms of major firefighting equipment, it's the 7 water bombers and 3 bird dogs?
Yeah, that's right.
Is the Wildfire Service considering a complete backcountry travel ban, or what would lead to a decision like that?
Yeah, every week we have meetings. We have meetings with the partners through Parks, the Conservation Officer, and the Wildfire Service, and also some like Forestry Branch, for example. And we review it annually or weekly. Yeah, of course, they could certainly change. If we don't get any more precipitation or green up, then we definitely be looking at further restrictions.
And what would be the goal of that?
The goal of restrictions?
Like a full ban beyond motorized travel?
To limit travel. It's to stop people from going to the backcountry for 2 reasons: is the chance of them starting a fire, and also in the event that there is a fire, and since the conditions can be so extreme at that point, that we won't want people to be trapped in the backcountry and not be able to come out.
You said conditions change a lot with the moisture level. Is there a certain threshold of rain or that you would then relax your concerns or the warnings? Or?
I would hate to give a number, but we need a good rain. Yeah.
Are there any thunderstorms in the forecast, and how might that impact?
Well, that's always the catch when it comes to rainfall, is that often thunderstorms come with it, and that causes the natural type of fires. So it's a blessing in disguise, and sometimes it's not a blessing, because then you still have those conditions and increased fires in remote areas when we're trying to put all of our focus into the more wildfire urban interface areas. Yeah.
When you're characterizing the fires, we hear the term wildfire and grass fire. What's the difference, and what have we seen more of this spring so far?
Yeah, these are definitely grass fires. Under the definition, they still would be wildfires. But no, what most people would say is a grass fire would be truly what you would think. The forest fires is when you get into the wooded timber and a little bit more remote.
Glenn, do you just want to touch on some of the interagency cooperation we have? Because it's,
thanks.
It's more than just the Wildfire Service.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. The uniqueness of spring wildfires is that most of these fires are in municipalities or other lands First Nation lands and other places, that there's other fire departments that we work extremely close with. We are building relationships with them. They're very well trained. They're very hardworking, just like our crews are. And we do a good partnership with the other fire departments to coordinate and to suppress these fires. And of course, we also do work with Office of Fire Commissioner at times and emergency measures organizations.
So would like a First Nation where there have been a number of fires this year call the wildfire service when they detect a fire? Is that how this sort of works?
Yeah, absolutely. In the areas that we mostly focus on, what we call the burn permit area, that we have working with them, and if they need assistance or if we detect the fire first, we'll be on the fire. But we definitely work together and try to work together to put out the fires.
I know you've sort of touched on it already, but part of the reason we're inside is because of the wind. Just given things are so dry and there are a number of fires underway, how quickly could things deteriorate with these winds?
Yeah, wind and dry fuel are the two worst things that you can have for a fire. And I truly feel like today is an absolutely no burn day. If somebody ever thought that would be just foolish. People have to be respectful of fire and respectful of the wind. And even if you're burning one portion of your land, at the end of it where the fire does start heading towards, the wind may be substantially different. So wind is a key part on the rate of spread for the fire, and it's a great concern for us. Like, today's not a good day.
And I know you're primarily focused on efforts probably outside of the city, but there is a fire ban also in Winnipeg right now, and some people might be wondering why they can't use their fire pits. Why would it be important to follow the restrictions?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I focus most on grassland and forest fires, so I'm not sure if I could comment on that. Yeah.